Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 9 of Outside the Letterbox. Today, as usual, we're going to be discussing what we've watched recently, some recent film news, and discuss Warner Brothers' most recent release, Godzilla. But first, you can find more episodes of Outside the Letterbox on our website, theletterbox.com, and on iTunes by just searching for Outside the Letterbox, as well as on FeedBurner. Leave us a review on iTunes or comment on our site. Again, that's the-letterbox.com. Today, I'm joined by one of my usual co-hosts.
Hey, it's Joe, like usual.
And we also have our resident Godzilla expert and good friend, Brian Watson. Brian?
Hello, I'm Brian Watson, and I'm happy to be here today with you guys, Paul.
Nice.
Stop lying, Brian.
All right, so we're just gonna kick this off with some things we've recently watched. Brian Watson, what have you recently watched that you would like to talk about?
Well, mostly recently and topical is probably Neighbors, when I saw that last weekend.
Nice. What did you think?
Well, it was fairly funny. Probably not something I'm going to buy, but it is creative enough to get a good first view laugh from it. Yeah, not really much to say.
Yeah, Joe, you saw that too, right?
Yeah, I did. Brian and I actually went to go see it together.
And what did you think?
It's funny. I mean, honestly, there's not really a whole lot to talk about there. It's what the trailers make it out to be. It's a raunchy comedy. It stars Seth Rogen. It stars that other guy who's in movies. It stars the High School Musical guy, Zac Efron, and it stars the other Franco guy that was in a couple, 21 Jump Street. So, I mean, it's pretty funny. It's worth a few laughs. And like, honestly, I kind of equate it to This Is the End, in that it's a different kind of comedy, but it's in the same vein as in, I got a few laughs out of it. A lot of it fell flat. It had trouble getting going at some points, but it ended up being all right. Whatever. You get what you pay for in that instance.
Yeah, it's not very memorable.
I heard it's like super raunchy, like raunchier than This Is the End.
I wouldn't go that far, but it is raunchy.
Okay.
Honestly, it's around the same. It's on the same level. I mean, like, maybe it's not as. I was gonna say it's not as juvenile as This Is the End. There was a lot of improv in this one too. I felt kind of like I wasn't a huge fan of Anchorman 2 because I felt like a lot of the improv kind of fell flat in that one. This one I felt like it worked a lot better, but I felt like they had more to work with here, or they just kind of felt more casual about it. So I mean, like it's a lot of improv humor, a lot of raunchy humor. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. Whatever. I'll probably forget about it in the next week, which I have.
Nice. All right, well, sweet. Joe, what else have you watched recently?
Another one that I watched, actually. Well, first off, I'm just gonna get this out of the way. I did watch The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I know that you, Paul, and Nick had quite a lively discussion about that one last time when I wasn't here. I was out of state. And I'll be honest, I didn't listen to the entire episode beginning to end, but I did listen to a good chunk of the Spider-Man dialogue, and I kind of skipped through it. So what I get the impression of is, though, Paul, you loved it, you thought it was a lot of fun, and Nick absolutely hated it, right?
Yeah, Nick thought it totally ruined Spider-Man.
I have no idea what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah, that's how I feel. And I don't want to badmouth him too bad because he's not here to defend himself.
No, I know. It's honestly, it's just a really fun movie. It's yes, it is. It has a lot of corny stuff in it, but it's not like it's unintentional. I felt like they knew what they were going with. It's kind of like you can't watch Jamie Foxx's performance as Electro in the movie and think that he's taking it at all seriously. He's playing it like he's like basically it feels like he's playing it as if someone told him, oh, yeah, you're playing a comic book villain, and that's like all they told him. He's just like, oh, okay, I'll have fun with it. And he just goes and has fun with it. It's not like he's doing bad acting. It's not like he's disgracing it. The cheesy one-liners are in there, but he runs with it. And I think everybody else, I think one of my favorite things about the movie was the way they portrayed Spider-Man in action in this one. I felt like you got a lot a great sense of the fact that here's a guy that has fun, throws quips while he's out fighting. Like that's what Spider-Man is known for. And he's just out there, throwing all these jokes around while he's fighting crime. And he actually takes time to be with people, I mean, like he sees a person in the street, and he says, how you doing? You're important. He walks the, there's one kid who's getting beaten up by bullies. He walks the kid home. I love this Spider-Man. Like, honestly, as far as, like, the Spider-Man action goes, I think this might be my favorite incarnation of Spider-Man as a hero, honestly. So it was a really fun movie, really enjoyable.
Nice. Sweet. Was there anything else? Yeah, you had one more, right?
Yeah, I did. This one is a little British horror film. This is my obscure horror movie of the week that nobody went to go see, but I was still pretty excited for. It was called The Quiet Ones. It's a paranormal, not an investigation movie, but it's one of those like paranormal, low budget horror movies. Honestly, it's not a bad little movie. The whole plot is about this professor at the school. I forget the actor's name. He played Moriarty in the new Sherlock Holmes movies. But he's a professor who is convinced that supernatural phenomena are simply scientific things. It's all scientific. There's no such thing as a supernatural. So he takes these students, and they're doing an experiment where they have a girl who is supposedly possessed, and they're running experiments on her to prove that they can cure her, to prove that she's not possessed. Obviously, things don't go quite as they planned, and it's fun, I guess, as far as this kind of movie goes. I know I talked about what's it called, that Mirror movie a few weeks ago. I didn't really care for.
Oculus.
Oculus, yeah. This one's along the same lines, as in, like, I kind of saw the trailers for them around the same time. I kind of had the same sorts of expectations for both of them. Oculus, I felt like was a horrible disappointment. This one, it started off really interesting. It slowed down. They didn't really have a whole lot to do for most of the movie. Honestly, this plot could have been condensed down to half an hour. But once it started picking up towards the end, it just got to be a lot of fun. And the ending's extremely predictable, but it's you get what you pay for in this case. And in this case, I enjoyed it. I'll probably never watch it again, but I'm glad I watched it.
It's funny that you say you enjoyed this one and were disappointed by Oculus, because, like, from the reviews, it seems like most people enjoyed Oculus and hated this one.
Yeah, that's because nobody watched this one. This one tanked terribly at the box office. Like, it didn't last more than like a week out of some theaters. But it's, I don't know, this one's more interesting than Oculus. Like, Oculus got started, and as soon as I saw the way that they were shooting it and the way that they were portraying it, I was like, oh gosh, it's a made-for-TV, kind of an MTV generation-style horror movie. Whereas this one, it tried to be smarter. It didn't. I'm not convinced it succeeded, but it at least felt like they were trying to do something interesting here. And it ends kind of in a terribly predictable note, but it left me more satisfied than Oculus did.
All right. Well, I will probably be checking out both of them at some point, because they've been on my radar for a while. But I didn't get to see either of them yet. So I have nothing to say. Maybe when I have
fun with those movies.
Yeah, maybe when I finally do see them, I'll bring them up. But I guess that leaves it to me. As you guys might be aware of, I spent most of last week rewatching the Indiana Jones movies. And I don't really want to talk about it too much right now, because Nick and I were going to have a discussion about it on this podcast, but he wasn't able, obviously, to make it to this podcast. So maybe we'll bring that up again at some point, because we have a little bone to pick, I think, about which Indiana Jones movie is the best.
And the worst.
It's not really a... Did you say the first?
And the worst.
Oh, and the worst. I was going to say, because I will fight you. No. No,
wait. So, Paul, is your favorite Last Crusade?
Yes, but it's not really fair to say, like, that's my favorite, because I really like all of them. I just happen to have, like, some nostalgic connections to Last Crusade, and I think it's more interesting as a movie. So
no, I totally agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I just think I really like all of them. So that's all I'm going to say about those. You know, obviously, to anybody listening, watch the Indiana Jones movies because they're great and they're classics and they'll probably be around for a long time to come. The other two I watched, the other two movies I watched, I'm not particularly proud of, but I was in the movie for some or at least some fun teen comedies. So I rewatched. I tried to rewatch two movies. The first one was She's the Man. I don't know if either of you guys have seen She's the Man.
No, I haven't.
But
That's the one with Amanda Bynes, right?
yeah, this one with Amanda Bynes pretending to be like her brother. It's based on the Shakespeare play Twelfth Night, and Channing Tatum's in it, and it does not hold up. I turned it off after about 15 minutes because I was like, this is just garbage. And it was fun, like when I first saw it, you know, back in 2005 or 6 when it came out, I was like, yeah, this is fun. And there are some funny parts, but overall it's just, ugh. And then I rewatched.
Wait. So you turned it off. You turned it off 15 minutes in. So did you really watch it?
No, I just wanted to. I've seen it before, so I have watched it. I just wanted to point out to anybody thinking about going back to it or thinking about watching it, it is not worth your time to watch. So I have seen the whole movie. I just want to point out that it's nowhere near as good as anybody listening probably remembers it to be.
If you want a really good Channing Tatum movie, you should all go back and rewatch This Is the End.
No, that is not true. Watch 21 Jump Street. But anyway, the second movie I watched, which does hold up, and I did watch all of, was Easy A, which came out in 2010. Have you guys seen Easy A?
Oh, I love Easy A. It's a great movie.
Joe, have you seen it?
That's one I haven't seen. Everybody I know who's seen it says, like, oh my gosh, that's a terrible idea for a movie, and then they watch it, and then they say, like, oh my gosh, it's the best movie ever made. I still haven't gotten around to it yet.
Well, it's fairly clever, but 90% of why the movie works is because of Emma Stone. If she was not the main character in the movie, I don't think, like, for example, like, if Amanda Bynes was the main character as opposed to Emma Stone, no offense to Amanda Bynes, but it would not have it wouldn't have worked as well because so many of the laughs just come from Emma Stone's performance and her sort of charisma. So that movie is still enjoyable to watch. They're both very light, fluffy entertainment. Again, like Easy A isn't really something for kids. It's more like high school teens and young adults or whatever. But Easy A is still very enjoyable for sure. But that pretty much sums up what we've watched recently. We sound sort of like classless film critics.
Hey, what are you talking about? I love me some good Andrei Tarkovsky. That's my go-to for like any like art film reference right there.
All right, well, you can try and defend yourself, Joe, but this week you watched Neighbors, The Amazing Spider-Man, and a crappy horror film. So, sorry.
I also watched Legend of the Drunken Master, so there we go. There's my classic stuff in there.
All right, you managed to weasel one in. Anyway, that's going to move us on to that is going to move us on into our news segment. First, some rather sad news, I guess.
Wow.
I didn't guess. It is sad news. I just don't know that a lot of people would appreciate H.R. Geiger's art. Like H.R. Geiger passed away, and if you don't know who he is the designer or the original concept artist, I guess, for a lot of what appeared in the original Alien and what therefore appeared in all the rest of the Alien films. He died this past week, and I guess the reason I say it's sort of sad, Joe, it is sad. It's sad that he passed away, but like I said, a lot of his art is very suggestive.
Psychosexual horror.
Right. But what I will say is that it definitely influenced a lot of pop culture just simply by having appeared in Alien and being such a big part of that universe. I I think there's a clear reason why Ridley Scott chose H.R. Geiger to do a lot of the concept art for Alien. There's the whole idea of the first film especially being a metaphor for rape. And H.R. Geiger's art definitely reflects, like you said, psychosexual horror. So, but again, it's a guy who had a lot of influence, I think, on pop culture through Aliens. So
Yeah. Well, a couple interesting things about H.R. Giger, excuse me, is that the guy I remember him for two things. Mainly, he didn't start off making designs for monsters. He just made like really kind of terrifying, kind of horrific, again like kind of like sci-fi sexual horror imagery, I guess. And when Ridley Scott made Alien, he saw someone handed him that book. Whatever the name of his book, I think like Necronomicon or something like that. The name of the book that he had a bunch of his art in it. And Ridley Scott looked at that book and he said, "I want this guy to design a monster movie. Like, imagine if this guy could do a monster movie." It's like imagine someone went up to Picasso and said, "I want you to design a romantic comedy." So basically, that's how he kind of got into it. And so it's fascinating. By the way, I don't think we really talked about Blu-rays on here, but if you want a really great addition to your Blu-ray collection and you love the Alien films, or even just the first Alien film, by all means, buy the Alien Anthology Blu-ray set. It is, besides just the movies on there, it is packed with literally days' worth of behind-the-scenes interviews and documentaries and pictures and all that great stuff. And you can really delve into the world of Alien and all that interesting stuff in there. But they had some great interviews with Giger in there also. And the guy is, or should I say was, just the weirdest guy. He's one of the reasons that watching these documentaries is just kind of a joy to watch, because he's this dark German guy hiding in in his house making pictures. He has a voice like that and that kind of stuff. And he just listening to him talk about his work, he's kind of terrifying but charming at the same time. Is all I can really think to say about it. So he's a really interesting guy. And besides the Alien, I know he also he designed the creature for his species, and he did a couple other monster movies since then. So it's really sad that he's gone, because the guy he did revolutionize the way we look at aliens and effects since then. Because you look before Alien, there wasn't really anything like that. Nowadays, you see a lot of aliens that kind of reference that one, and that design. But he's the one that really got that started. So it's really sad that he's gone now.
Yeah. So that's the passing of H.R. Giger, who I just realized I've been pronouncing his name wrong. But our next bit of news is wait, is that right? Hold on. I want to make sure I have this name right. Is it Roberto Orci? I thought it was just Robert. Oh, it is Roberto Orci. Okay, I thought it was Robert Orci, but it is Roberto Orci has been officially announced as the director for Star Trek 3, which is particularly interesting because it's his first directing credit ever. Apparently never directed anything else. He's got a ton of writing credits for a lot of, sort of big budget action films, Star Trek Into Darkness, Star Trek, Cowboys and Aliens, I guess it was a little smaller film, but People Like Us. He helps write The Amazing Spider-Man 2. He's writing The Amazing Spider-Man 3. He's writing Star Trek 3. I mean, the guy's got a ton of writing credits, but this is his first directing credit, and it's Star Trek 3. Like, that's kind of a big deal,
Yeah.
He also has a ton of producing credits. So, to me, I guess it's more just funny that this is the first time he's ever directed anything. And I don't know that that's a bad thing. I just, it feels like we have no reference for, what to expect.
I think we can expect something that looks exactly like a J.J. Abrams movie.
That's probably fair. I would bet that for his first directing film, or first directing, project, that's crazy that Star Trek 3 is his first directing project.
It's like David Fincher making his first directing project being Alien 3. Oh.
I guess it's kind of, well, that just scares me. Yeah, but it's kind of a good point though. Like he doesn't. I mean, I guess if he's a producer on Star Trek 3, then he probably does have more clout than David Fincher had for Alien 3. You know. So I don't know. He's got a lot of credits. He's got a lot of producing, writing credits. And he is a writer for Star Trek 3. So we'll see what happens. I think a lot of people didn't like Star Trek Into Darkness. I really enjoyed Star Trek Into Darkness. I went to see it twice, just for the heck of it. So, you liked it too.
I have it on Blu-ray. I really enjoyed that one a lot too. Actually, honestly, between J.J. Abrams' first Star Trek movie and this one, I mean they're both comparable, but I probably say I probably enjoyed the new one a little bit more than the first one.
Brian, did you like the new one?
No, I didn't like Into Darkness.
At all.
It was a painful movie-going experience for me. I don't get to say that often, but it kind of was.
Last time Brian said that, he went to go see Prometheus.
Oh.
Wait. Okay, we're not getting into Prometheus because I really like Prometheus. But why was Star Trek Into Darkness a painful experience?
It wasn't. I'm just being overly dramatic. It was. I don't know. I just really did not enjoy it. A lot of it came with the. I felt like the whole killing Kirk off was too cheap when they just kind of brought him back at the end.
Whoa, spoiler alert. I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
It's been out for a year.
Yeah, there was just like a lot of stuff that they tried to like build drama out of areas of the movie that I felt didn't really have any drama attached to it. I don't know. It's just I haven't watched it since the initial run in the theaters, so my mind is my memory of it's a little bit fuzzy. I just remember thinking like the pre-credit sequence was awesome, and then just went downhill from there.
All right. Well, that's fair. Anyway, yeah. So that's Roberto Orci is going to be directing the next Star Trek movie. And our final little bit of news, if you didn't get to see it, we shared it through our Facebook page, but you can also just search for Christopher Nolan's latest film, Interstellar, had a new trailer released this week, and it's the first time we've really gotten a look at parts of the story, sort of. I feel like most of what we're getting is just from, like, the first half of the movie.
The first 5 minutes.
I hope it's not the first 5 minutes, because I am not going to feel any emotional attachment for any of the child characters if that's just the first 5 minutes. But I thought it was a really cool trailer. It's interesting because it reminded me a lot of like Alien and 2001: A Space Odyssey, especially in the shots we got to see of the inside the spaceship and of space. You know, it just kind of reminded me of one of those classic sort of space exploration films. And it was really exciting to watch. It looks really beautiful as a film, which Christopher Nolan has done a great job of. You know, even with the Batman movies, they look amazing. So I'm really excited for it. We still don't really have too clear of an idea of what exactly it's about, other than Matthew McConaughey has to leave his children to go on some sort of space expedition, and Anne Hathaway is there.
Which is more than the first trailer showed us. At least now we know it takes place in space, partially at least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, what did you guys think?
I thought it looked good. I thought it looked really it's interesting. Like you've mentioned, we still don't know much about it, but it's enough to get me interested and want to go see it.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's kind of like when I saw the first Guardians of the Galaxy trailer, and I saw that, and I was like, this movie has the potential to be my favorite Marvel movie, just based on if the movie delivers on the tone alone. I'm getting kind of the same feel about Interstellar, is that if the entire movie feels anything like that trailer, this could be one of my favorite Christopher Nolan movies. It's just, I don't know, sci-fi is really my kind of my area. Christopher Nolan makes a really solid movie. So seeing Christopher Nolan make a really great, outer space sci-fi adventure movie, And if he delivers on that, it could have the potential to be like one of my favorite Nolan movies. So we'll see as we get closer to it.
Yeah, one thing I just want to say though is that like I'm sure Nolan, considering the clout he has now after the Batman series and Inception, I think he kind of gets what a trailer's supposed to be in a way that a lot of studios don't, in the sense that he's giving us a taste of what we're going to see in the movie, but he's not giving away the story, which is really refreshing to see.
Yeah, it's great.
I don't know, like, for example, Spider-Man is the most recent one I can think of that has sort of spoiled itself before it comes out. But I've been trying to avoid the trailers for X-Men Days of Future Past, which is really hard to do, especially if you're going to see other movies. But even that, I feel like a lot of that storyline has been spoiled for me because of marketing. So I just sort of appreciate the fact that we're enticed to see this Interstellar, but we don't really know what the story is.
Note to self: start posting trailers for X-Men: Days of Future Past on Paul's wall.
Yeah, well, he did the same thing with Inception, though. If you guys remember, like we didn't fully know what Inception was about either. So
Yeah.
I had no idea what the hell Inception was going to be about until I went into the theater.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that pretty much sums up all the news we have this week, the film news we have that we want to talk about this week, and that's going to bring us to our main topic of the week: Warner Brothers and Legendary Pictures' Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
And
Before we get
for the first, hold on a second.
I'm sorry.
Joe, hold
Sorry.
on. For the
Okay.
first 15 minutes, we're going to 15 minutes or so. We're going to talk about it without spoilers. After which is kind of tough, I guess. But after which, we're just going to talk about it in very general terms. After that, we'll have a spoiler alert for those who don't want the movie to be spoiled. But again, it's a pretty we'll talk about it. But yeah, we'll have a spoiler alert before. So I'm just going to throw it out to whoever wants to go first. What did you guys think of Godzilla?
Go ahead, Brian, lead us away.
I can easily say that this is the most well-made Godzilla movie since the original 1954, and in my opinion, probably better than that one. It's a very well-made movie. It has a very emotional human core to it, which is actually causing a lot of problems for some hardcore Godzilla fans. They don't think Godzilla's featured enough. I think they're crazy. This movie has a lot of great monster action, a lot of story, and a lot of heart to it. So I don't know. I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say about it. More so, Paul, because I already know what Joe thinks.
Well, wait, I want to hear what Joe thought about it first.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was okay. Just kidding. No, I actually thoroughly love this one. I've watched quite a few of the Godzilla movies. I'm sure not nearly as many as Brian has, but I think is there a Godzilla movie that you haven't seen, Brian, yet? Actually,
I actually haven't seen Destroy All Monsters all the way through, but apparently I've seen all the parts that matter in that movie.
And yet you still watch Godzilla's Revenge?
Oh, don't remind me. That was a birthday present when I was like 15, or not 15, when I was like 11, and it hurt.
It hurt you back then.
Yep.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, honestly, I feel kind of cheap saying this, but this might be my favorite Godzilla movie next to the original one. In fact, honestly, I'd probably put it right up there. If you ask me point blank which one I'd rather watch, I wouldn't be able to tell you, because they're both different. They both have their own pluses and that kind of stuff. In a heartbeat, I'd put either one of these movies on equally. And it's interesting because it carries a lot of gravitas that you don't see in a lot of the Godzilla movies after the original one, which I really appreciated. So I don't know. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I think it's a fantastic giant monster movie. I love Pacific Rim, but as far as capturing the scope of a giant monster movie, Godzilla does it better than I think any other monster movie that I think I've seen before. Like, these things look and feel huge, which is really exhilarating to see in a movie like this. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think the human drama, yes, there is a lot of it. Godzilla, at times, even during action scenes, Godzilla kind of takes second stage or whatever. What do you want to say about it to the human stuff going on?
He's kind of a secondary character in his own movie, but that's not a bad thing. It's really not.
Exactly. It's like everybody who complains about Godzilla not being enough of the movie. You are warranted in your complaint that he isn't in a lot of the movie, but for one thing, he makes up for every minute that he's on screen. He more than makes up for the time that he's off screen. Like, a second of Godzilla on screen is worth 10 minutes of human drama. It's worth waiting for because we'll talk about it more, I'm sure, later on in the conversation. But I'm really glad that they held off on showing a lot of him, because if they had oversaturated the movie with Godzilla, it would have gotten really old really fast, and this movie would have felt really, really long, which it didn't, even though it's over 2 hours.
It would have felt like any of the other Japanese Godzilla movies.
Yeah, exactly. If the opening scene had been a big fight scene with Godzilla and another monster, like, honestly, the next 2 hours would have felt dreadfully slow, but because they were leading up to it so well, and honestly, everything, even all the human drama, it's all because of the kaiju in the movie, and it's all leading up to that. So, I mean, like, the entire movie feels like one big lead up to one of the most epic giant monster scenes I think I've seen in a really long time, if ever. And it's worth it. I mean, I watched this movie over and over again in a heartbeat.
All right. Well, you guys both clearly really liked it.
Paul hated it.
Well, let me preface what I'm going to say with a few things. First, I really liked this movie. I really enjoyed it and was thoroughly entertained the whole time. It's definitely worth seeing. For sure, if you like monster movies, you should see it in theaters. Like, it's pretty awesome. I did not like Pacific Rim very much. I think I gave it like 3 out of 5 stars. I thought the only things in Pacific Rim worth watching to me were Charlie Day and the fight scenes with the monsters. The rest of the movie you can fast forward through, in my opinion. This movie was considerably better. I liked it a lot more, but I don't think I liked it as much as you guys did.
Fair enough.
I'm just gonna say, like, I have not seen the original Godzilla movie, so you can shoot me in the head whatever you want for that. I have seen the 1999 or 2000. That is my, other than like little bits and pieces of the original and other Godzilla films, that is my only point of reference for Godzilla movies. And what I'll say, like, this movie, while very enjoyable, felt kind of, I'm going to use an analogy, this might be a bad analogy, but it felt like Jurassic Park with the devastation of Man of Steel, but without any of the fun of either of those movies. And let me just, like, what I mean by that is that, like, the whole movie feels so, like, serious, except for the parts where you get, like, wide shots of the monsters fighting, and those are awesome. Like, those are amazing. And the rest of the movie, I was sort of just, like, wishing for, like, a joke from somebody. Like, please, somebody say a joke, something I can laugh at. Because I was so stressed out, and it felt like, and maybe I'm wrong about Godzilla movies, but it felt like the type of movie that should have had some sort of comic relief. And it didn't. So that's my main complaint. I know other people I saw it with sort of said that they didn't see much of a story in it, and that's kind of a fair point too. If there is a story, it's a very simple story, and I think there is a story, and it's very much like a surviving almost a natural disaster movie, except as Bryan Cranston reminds us, this was not a natural disaster.
Can we please get into spoilers? I mean, like there's some stuff in the movie. It's not necessarily spoilers for the end, but just kind of ruining moments in the movie. Specifically in answer to your question about your comments about humor in there. That I really want to talk about, but it's kind of like ruining little moments in the movie that are best seen without knowing that they happen.
Well, I guess, Brian, did anyone else have anything to say outside of spoilers?
Well, I do have one thing I do want to say, just kind of comparing it to the original, that wouldn't fall inside of spoilers, but either way, it wouldn't matter.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, it's just about the tone of it. I know one of the big things going into this movie is that they didn't want it to be campy like the 60s movies, so they did try really hard to replicate the tone of the original one, which Joe and I were lucky enough to see in theaters 2 nights before we went and saw it, and I'd never really noticed it before until we were sitting there in the theater, but almost every other word out of somebody's mouth in the original one was, man, this is just like the hydrogen bomb on legs, essentially. That movie is depressing, man.
Actually, Paul, if you think that the new Godzilla movie is joyless, try watching the original one. There are no jokes in that one.
Okay, that's part of the I think that has to get into spoilers because I think you're right, Joe. There are moments in the movie that I want to talk about specifically. But go ahead, Brian. You were gonna say something else.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about just the top. Yeah, I basically said all I need to say. We can get into spoilers. No worries.
Okay. All right. Well, from this point forward, to anybody listening, we are going to talk about spoilers for Godzilla. So, if you do not want the movie to be spoiled for you at all, you can skip to the end, or just stop listening. Whatever. But from this point forward, we're going to be talking about spoilers. So you have been warned.
Also, if you are going to turn this off at this point, I just want to say, it sounds like you can get a recommendation for this movie. I think from all of us. I mean, Brian and I probably more so, but it sounds like you probably recommend it too, right, Paul?
Yeah, totally. Like, it's totally worth seeing in theaters. Yeah, you won't be disappointed if you're expecting Godzilla tearing some shit up. So, yeah.
So, anyway, the moment I want to mention in particular, I think it's one of the funniest moments in the movie, actually, is the one, Brian knows exactly what I'm talking about, is the first big reveal of Godzilla. He comes up out of the water. You have the Mewtwo, I could call him Mewtwo. The giant Cloverfield monster. Is in the city, and Godzilla comes out of the water, and he stands up, and there's this great reveal shot of him, the first full shot of Godzilla in the movie, and he roars, and it is just a huge, like if you love Godzilla, this is like the best image ever, just of him roaring, that kind of stuff, and you're like, oh shit, it's going to lead into this epic, huge fight, and then it cuts away to Bryan Cranston's son with his mom, sorry, not Bryan Cranston's son, the other guy's son, the main character's son, and he's with his mom in where do they live again? Some American city, whatever.
San Francisco?
San Francisco, that place, wherever that place is. Anyway, they're in there, and he's watching the TV, and the camera doesn't linger on the TV; it just kind of catches it. And you see this big epic fight between the two monsters going on camera. So it's almost like you have this lead up to this huge fight, and then the movie just kind of ignores it, but you can still see it's going on. It's just really funny because it's almost like the Godzilla fight's kind of taking secondary to the human stuff going on. But it's played for laughs. Like, it isn't played like the movie wants to focus on the family anymore. Like, it purposefully catches the TV screen, so you can see the fight going on, all this crazy stuff, and the kids watching it, and the mom saying, "Oh, can you turn off the TV?" And there's annoying sounds going on, that kind of stuff. But it's just, I laughed so hard at that part.
But that's the thing, is that, like, to me, that scene wasn't. There are other scenes I laughed at, but not for those reasons. Like, that scene to me wasn't. If it had been a random kid and a random parent, I would have laughed. But the fact that it was his kid and his mom made me, like, I didn't read that as trying to be funny. I read it as, like, they know he's in Hawaii. Like, that's got to be terrifying for that little kid. That's how I read that scene. That's maybe just watching the movie differently, but I didn't see that as funny. I'm going to tell you the two scenes that I laughed at, and these are pretty big spoilers because they were pretty awesome scenes. But the first one I laughed at not because it was funny, but because it was awesome. I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened when it's like when he kills the monster at the end. And he's
oh my god.
That was the first scene you laughed at?
No, sorry. That was the second scene I laughed at, but the first one I wanted to mention. This first scene I laughed at was when it was in Hawaii, and we're getting the shot in the airport, and it's the planes are being blown up. I was like, oh my gosh, the planes are being blown up. The planes are being blown up. And then Godzilla's foot comes in frame, and I could not help but laugh because it looked like something I made in second grade. I get that that's part of Godzilla's design, but that looked like shitty. I'm sorry, that looked like something a little kid made and was like playing with. So that was
just putting this giant action figure in the camera.
Well, yeah, it was like a big elephant foot. Maybe I saw it wrong. But it looked really bad, and that was the only time I thought, man, Godzilla looks really lame right now. But I know that a ton of people had like huge problems with the design of Godzilla in the original, like not the original, sorry, in the 1999 one, and that's totally fair. Like that was weird. That wasn't Godzilla, whatever. But I feel like they could have done something with his design to make him, like, maybe a bit more agile-looking.
Well,
I don't know. I felt like those things should have been able to whoop his ass pretty easily based on their mobility versus his. But that's just like those are sort of minor things, and that like this I'm just gonna get all my problems out with the movie right now. Like, it's fine. I feel like it's fine to have a very serious monster movie. That's totally fine. But the way it all played out, like, it felt like the plot points were campy without the movie wanting to be campy. Like, the fact that Aaron Taylor Johnson's character happened to be on that exact subway at that exact time, you know, like,
and he's the only one to survive like every monster attack. Like literally, he's at every monster attack except the one in Las Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. Like those kind of plot points, like to me, are sort of campy plot points that are fine if you've got maybe like a few one-liners in the movie that are like funny, that like make you chuckle or whatever. But in a movie that's like seems to be taking itself so damn seriously, the rest of the movie, it felt like there were things that clashed to me about that, and they're minor things because the whole movie is very entertaining for sure. But those types of things just really irked me while watching the movie. They sort of took me out of the movie, and maybe you guys disagree. I think you guys.
No, definitely. Especially after the part with the train crash, I was like, no way. Like, this is too much. But right. Even still, like, that...
It didn't ruin the movie. Yeah. It was just in my head, I was like, okay, so we're not that serious about this.
And
yeah, well, go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say, even, like... Joe and I got that first laugh from the news footage, so it wasn't completely serious, like, but it's not a campy movie. But I get what you're saying there, Paul. Trying to like think of how to like formulate this.
Yeah, I think the best way to say it is that it's just genuinely entertaining. It's not campy. It is kind of a more serious movie, but it's not a. I mean, like it doesn't take itself very seriously. I mean, it's kind of like it's a lot of stuff they play for. They play for laughs during certain scenes, but it's not a comedy. They play for seriousness, but it has really entertaining things about it.
Well, Joe, that's where I disagree. Is I don't think they played for laughs in any of the scenes, and I think that's the main problem. Even if there was that one scene, even if that was supposed to be played for laughs, I don't think that was enough to only have one scene that's played for laughs.
Or the scene in Las Vegas where everybody's in the casino and you see the news footage of Las Vegas being terrorized, like in the casino, people are like, "What?" And all of a sudden the casino gets ripped out and there's a monster like right there.
But that's what I mean is I don't think, given the tone of the rest of the movie, that doesn't play off as that funny, and that it just plays off as like these people don't realize what's going on. Like that's all that plays off as to me, and that's I guess maybe that's my. This could just be me too. Like I didn't like Pacific Rim because it was like too campy. The acting in that was ridiculous. The lines in that were like whatever. Like it was just too campy. Whatever was going on in terms of the plot and the script. This one was like the totally opposite direction, where I was like, there's no relief from the stress I'm feeling in this movie. And that I don't know, like I want some sort of compromise between the two. Again, I think this is a very good movie, and I think it's leagues better than Pacific Rim. Even just the build-up, like in Pacific Rim, you have so many of those like kaiju fights. You get to see a lot of that, and I feel like that makes the final one sort of like, oh, like we sort of already saw this, but with this, there's that build-up, and like seeing Godzilla use his, radioactive like fire-breathing whatever was awesome. Like that's so cool. And then being like whipped back around to the human drama was like, oh, 5 billion people just died because he used his radioactive fire. I don't know.
Well, it's funny. I was watching another internet review of this movie that these guys were doing, and they were saying how a problem that they had with Man of Steel was the collateral damage in that movie, and how Superman doesn't take time out, to go out of his way to stop, all this damage from happening, all these people from dying. But then they brought up that, like, well, Godzilla, the same thing happens, but he gets a pass because he's Godzilla, and he's the size of a building, and he can't really help it, and he's not really going out of his way of smashing monsters into buildings and stuff. I thought it was kind of funny to think about it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I guess the collateral damage doesn't bother me that much. The serious tone of the film, and again, like you guys are probably right. Like if they're trying to go for what the original film was portraying, then they probably succeeded more. But I feel like if I watched the original movie now, I would be laughing at it anyway, just at
the effects
for certain parts, Yeah, exactly. So I think it's tough.
Yeah, it's really funny actually because it's interesting that you took the movie so seriously, because I remember watching the movie, and at one point I was thinking about it. I'm like, wow, this is kind of a more serious tone of a Godzilla movie. I think for me, a lot of the levity came in the fact that well, for one thing, just like to me personally, the way the movie was shot, it felt more like like with like the music and the camera angles and all that kind of stuff. It felt more like not a Hollywoodized movie, but it felt like a movie that is just competently made, but isn't taking itself super seriously. And that's just me. I mean, it's like it was like kind of a serious movie. But another thing is almost every shot of Godzilla in the movie is a money shot, as far as I'm concerned. And as someone who has loved a lot of the Godzilla movies, like for instance, you were talking about the shot with the foot when it comes into frame, and how shitty that looked. But to me, seeing that foot coming into frame honestly was one of the most exhilarating shots in the movie. If nothing else, because That is kind of how his design looks in the original one, and the fact that you have just this big, powerful foot coming into frame, and you're like, oh crap, that's Godzilla's foot, shit's about to get real. It was kind of like one of those moments where you just kind of, go back and go, squeal, it's so excited.
To me, it looks like Barney's foot. Like I think that's honestly, I'm not kidding for like. That's fine for you, but I think that's an issue with the film. Maybe being a little too dedicated to wanting to please its fans and not trying to stick with like a consistent.
Well, okay, wait, stop. The foot doesn't look like past Godzilla foot designs. Past Godzilla foot designs look more Tyrannosaurus-like. They changed it to, like what you described earlier, as a more elephant design in this movie for some reason. I don't know why, but that was one of the bigger changes they made to him.
Yeah, so that's a confusing change to me because the T-Rex foot would have looked better.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I thought it looked cool. It supported his weight. He's a big guy. He needs shoes.
Regardless of the foot, though, Joe, I want to get more of Brian's opinion on the whole movie too. But like, regardless of the foot, like you say it's shot as sort of like a Hollywoodized, like competently shot movie, but not necessarily that seriously. I gotta disagree because you've got those scenes like. One of the best sequences in the movie is where Ford Brody, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, jumps out of the Chinook or whatever and falls down, and you've got this like shrill violin music going that's just like barely there, and that's all you hear, and you see him fall past Godzilla, and that whole tone, that whole sequence screams like serious terror film.
Yeah, see, for me, that scene in particular, it didn't scream terror as much as it screamed just exhilarating tension. I mean, it's kind of like, again, I know it's confusing the way I was wording earlier, but what I was saying was that it wasn't Hollywoodized, but it was very entertaining. I mean, like for instance, when I think Hollywoodized, I think something like The Avengers, which is great, but this is nothing like The Avengers.
Right.
This is more like just kind of a straightforward, well-made movie. That I think the serious tone comes from the fact that it's trying to make a Godzilla movie that has a lot of tension in it, a lot of fan service in it in a way, but like not like kind of fake fan service. But it's kind of like a lot of just well done reveals, and it is very dramatic. But I wouldn't say it's dark. It's very full tension, but it's not a dark movie per se,
Yeah, I guess it's not necessarily dark, but I think it is. I think it might be a little too serious. Also, Brian, I really want you to talk more about this, but one last problem is Ken Watanabe declaring what the theme of the movie was 2/3 of the way through the movie. I always hate that. Like, I don't like it in Spider-Man. I don't like it, but it's more forgivable in a movie that is more campy. That really bugged me in this movie. It flowed with his character. It didn't feel unnatural necessarily, but it felt annoying to me that we needed someone to tell us it. But anyway, Brian, what did you think?
Well, between this little debate you guys just had, I definitely do side more with Paul on this one. A lot of the scenes were really giddy for me just because I've been a fan since I was like 3. I mean, I've grown up with this, and this kind of like, it's a really exhilarating experience for me. I just get pumped every time like Godzilla showed up on scene or any of the monsters really. Going back, also about Ken Watanabe, yeah, his whole character was kind of frustrating for me because I really enjoy Ken Watanabe as an actor, and I just don't feel like there was only one scene I really thought that he got to really show his chops, and that was when he shows the the watch to the was he a general or an admiral?
I think he was an admiral.
Admiral, yeah. And I really that scene might have been a little bit heavy-handed, but I really felt that Ken Watanabe pulled it off in that one.
Yeah, I agree.
I was also kind of disappointed that he and Bryan Cranston never got any real screen time together.
That's true. that was a total like red herring, by the way.
Yeah. I think it really that might cause some problems for people because as soon as the first monster shows up, he's gone.
Yep. Yep. I was surprised. I was like, did they really just... Oh, yeah, they did.
Yeah, it was shocking. But, man, he left a bigger impact on the movie than any other human cast member.
Him and, what's her name, Binoche.
Yeah, Juliette Binoche, yeah. Man, they were great. They
were probably the highlights in terms of...
the human cast, yeah.
So...
Oh, what?
What?
Sorry, I think my audio cut off a little bit.
Joe, what does anyone have any last words? We're gonna wrap it up, I think.
No, not really. It's for me. Yeah, it's a Godzilla movie that I've been waiting for a while. It gives Godzilla the gravitas that it's due while still being a fun monster movie at the same time. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Brian.
It's a great movie. It does have its flaws. It's not without flaws. It kind of follows in the tradition of the reboots of the James Bond franchise and the Batman franchise, and I hope you can just kind of have fun with it for what it is.
Yeah, I would say that I would definitely agree with Brian. I think, especially today, I think it's insanely difficult to make a movie like Godzilla without flaws, especially given the fans of like the classic and how hard it can be to please. Certain fans. I mean, you even said, Brian, some people aren't happy with this movie.
A lot. I know a lot of really hardcore fans that don't even put this in their top 5, and that blows my mind.
Yeah, I think we all definitely recommend seeing it in theaters. There's a blast. Like hearing Godzilla roar like that on screen with the sound is just like I felt like my hair was blowing back. There were some really great cinematic moments. So that I think we all recommend Godzilla for sure. I feel like I usually have problems with really good things, so whatever.
Can we all just agree that scene at the end where he kills that final monster is just perfect?
I actually went like woo in the theater, but I didn't want to get any sort of reaction, and then I felt really awkward.
Down your throat.
That was so epic. That was great. But anyway, that's gonna conclude our podcast for the day, I think, guys. Brian, do you have any place that people can check out any articles or blogs or anything like that you want people to know about?
Well, I have the Filmburger blog on. That's a just a blogger profile, but that's like impossible to find on Google search.
Okay. Do you have a Twitter account? You do have a Twitter account.
I do have a Twitter account. It's at Brian Watson at Twitter or whatever, however Twitter works.
Sorry, I just looked at it. It's at Brian Watson 72. There you go.
Yeah.
Clearly, he uses it a lot. No, I'm just kidding. So, how about you? Where can people find you?
Find me at Credo Films. That's CREDO Films on Twitter.
And you can find me at PFDuda on Twitter. As you can find articles from me, Joe, and Nick, and maybe Brian at some point. I don't know. At the-letterbox.com. Again, you can find more episodes, as well as articles and film news and analysis on our website, like I just said, the-letterbox.com. You can find our podcast on iTunes by searching for Outside the Letterbox, as well as on FeedBurner. I think next week we're going to be talking about X-Men: Days of Future Past. I'm really excited to see that movie. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really stoked to see it.
I'm psyched. I'm actually really looking forward. I'm probably looking forward to this one more. I probably haven't looked forward to an X-Men movie as much as since the Wolverine.
So the last one.
Yeah,
it was. Yes, it was.
Anyway, that's we'll see you guys next week. So yeah, thanks.